You weren't supposed to find this video, unless it was your time. That sudden tightness in your chest. That's recognition. That's your spirit bearing witness to a truth your mind has been dancing around but your soul has always known. I'm speaking directly to someone right now who's been feeling it, that unmistakable pull away from the people who've known you longest. The growing distance between you and those familiar faces. The conversations that suddenly feel hollow. The gatherings that drain rather than fill you. The subtle but unmistakable knowing that you're being called to walk a path they simply cannot follow. And it terrifies you, doesn't it? The thought of leaving behind those connections. The fear of being misunderstood. The guilt that keeps you awake at night whispering, what kind of person walks away from the people who love them? What kind of person chooses distance over familiarity? What kind of person feels so different? A chosen one. That's who. Your discomfort isn't dysfunction. Your distance isn't disloyalty. That voice calling you away isn't destruction, it's divine direction. If this already hit your spirit like lightning, drop a fire in the comments so I know I'm talking to the right soul. Because what I'm about to share isn't for casual consumption. It's for the ones carrying a calling that's bigger than blood ties and deeper than dinner table connections. You are the chosen. The hidden. The rising. You've always sensed it, haven't you? That inexplicable difference. That subtle separation. Even as a child, you felt it, like you were living between worlds, seeing what others couldn't see, feeling what others couldn't feel, carrying questions others weren't asking. Your sensitivity wasn't weakness. Your intensity wasn't too much. Your vision wasn't illusion. You weren't born different to be rejected, you were born different to redirect. You weren't given that perceptive spirit to be wounded. You were given it to be a way shower. You weren't marked by divine purpose to be misunderstood, you were marked to establish new understanding. This growing distance between you and those familiar faces isn't rejection, it's realignment. It's not abandonment, it's assignment. What feels like painful separation is actually sacred preparation for the soul family waiting on the other side of your courage. Let me speak something over you that few will have the courage to tell you. Sometimes, the most spiritual step you can take is away from the people who've known you the longest. This isn't about hatred. This isn't about bitterness. This isn't even about them doing something wrong. This is about divine trajectory, the undeniable reality that not everyone who was part of your history is meant to be part of your destiny. Throughout sacred texts and spiritual traditions, we see this pattern repeated. Abraham left his father's household. Moses walked away from the palace that raised him. Ruth left her homeland and family. Jesus himself said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple." These weren't instructions to despise family, they were divine recognition that the path of the chosen often diverges from the paths of even those closest to them. Your growing disconnection from certain relationships isn't a moral failure, it's a mystical fulfillment of an ancient spiritual principle. Transformation requires separation. And today, I'm going to walk you through 7 divine revelations about why chosen ones must walk away from friends and family, and why this painful process isn't punishment, but promotion. Let me tell you what's really happening. It's not that you've become cold or uncaring. It's that your energetic frequency has shifted so dramatically that certain connections can no longer sustain themselves naturally. Think about it. 2 tuning forks of different frequencies placed side by side won't resonate together. 2 radio stations broadcasting on different frequencies can't share the same space without interference. This isn't about better or worse, it's about fundamental compatibility. The awakening you've been experiencing. Those 3 a.m. revelations, those unexpected tears, those moments of clarity that felt like the universe cracking open, they've altered your energetic signature. The meditations, the inner work, the surrendering, the releasing, the rebirthing, they've recalibrated you at a cellular level. You're not imagining the distance. You're not creating the discomfort. What used to feel like home now feels foreign because you're vibrating at a frequency that the old environments and relationships simply cannot match. Have you noticed how certain conversations now feel impossibly shallow? How gatherings that once energized you now leave you depleted? How words that once connected now seem to bypass each other entirely? How you can speak and still not feel heard? This isn't your imagination. It's not their fault. It's not your failure. It's spiritual physics. When water reaches 212 degrees Fahrenheit 100 degrees Celsius, it doesn't just become hot water, it fundamentally changes state. It becomes steam. It occupies different space. It follows different laws. If you've undergone spiritual transformation, you haven't just become a better version of your old self, you've undergone a fundamental change of state. The discomfort in those old relationships is the natural consequence of trying to exist as steam in environments designed for liquid. If this resonates in your soul, comment frequency shift below. I need to know who I'm really talking to. Every divine assignment comes with divine requirements. Every calling demands specific conditions. Every mission necessitates particular environments. The space you need to grow into your purpose is space they simply cannot provide, not because they don't love you, but because they can't give what they don't possess. Think of a tropical plant placed in an Arctic environment. The Arctic isn't hostile, it's just unsuited for that particular life form. The people around that plant might love it deeply, might want desperately for it to thrive, might do everything they know to help it survive, but without fundamentally changing the environment, which they cannot do, that plant will never reach its potential there. Your soul is like that tropical plant. Your purpose requires conditions that certain relationships, no matter how historically significant, no matter how emotionally important, simply cannot provide. They may offer comfort, but comfort isn't what grows you. They may offer security, but security isn't what expands you. They may offer familiarity, but familiarity isn't what transforms you. Moses had to leave Egypt to discover who he truly was. Joseph had to be separated from his family to step into his purpose. Elijah had to leave the cities and crowds to hear the still, small voice. Here's the shift that changes everything. Walking away isn't betrayal, it's obedience to something larger than loyalty to the familiar. The guilt you feel isn't divine conviction, it's human conditioning that prioritizes the maintaining of connections over the fulfilling of purpose. Let me tell you what that really means. The pressure to remain the same for the comfort of others isn't love, it's limitation. True love expands. True love releases. True love honors the sacred calling within each soul, even when that calling leads to separate paths. If you know deep in your spirit that your assignment requires space they simply cannot give you, type "making room" in the comments. Declare it over yourself, your calling is not negotiable. The accusations have started, haven't they? Or perhaps they're still just whispers. Subtle implications. Questions loaded with judgment. You've changed. You think you're better than us now? Why can't you just be happy with what everyone else is happy with? Why are you making things so complicated? Why can't you just come back to who you used to be? Let me speak truth into that wounded place. What they label as selfish, spirit recognizes as sacred. Your awakening threatens the sleep of others. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your courage to change reminds them of changes they've been avoiding. Your willingness to walk an unfamiliar path confronts their decision to choose comfort over calling. Throughout history, those who answered the call of spirit above the call of conformity have been misunderstood, maligned, and rejected, often by those closest to them. The prophets were persecuted by their own people. The mystics were marginalized by the masses. The truth-tellers were cast out by the comfortable. This isn't coincidence, it's cosmic design. Because transformation isn't transferred through comfort, it's transmitted through contrast. When Jesus said, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home," he wasn't just describing his experience, he was revealing a spiritual principle that echoes through the journey of every soul called to awakening. The very context that shaped you is often the least prepared to support your reshaping. Your need for new connections, new spaces, new conversations isn't selfish. It's survival. It isn't ego, it's essence. It isn't rejection of them, it's reception of who you're becoming. If you've been carrying the weight of their judgments, questioning if your inner knowing is just selfishness in disguise, comment "sacred not selfish" below. Because I'm speaking to those who need permission to honor their soul's direction without shame. You've always felt too much, haven't you? Absorbed emotions that weren't yours. Carried burdens that didn't belong to you. Sensed undercurrents that others seemed oblivious to. What you once thought was a curse, that raw sensitivity, that inability to block out the pain and heaviness around you, is actually your most powerful gift. You're an empath. A sensitive. A soul with porous boundaries between yourself and the energy of others. But here's what nobody told you, your empathic gifts require fierce protection. Walking away from certain connections isn't cruelty. It's stewardship of the very sensitivity that makes you a healer, a way shower, a light carrier. In ancient temples, the most sacred spaces weren't accessible to everyone. The Holy of Holies, the inner sanctum, the places of highest vibration, these were protected, separated, set apart. Not out of elitism, but out of energetic necessity. Because certain frequencies must be preserved to serve their highest purpose. You are a walking temple. Your sensitivity is a sacred technology that requires specific conditions to function optimally. The exhaustion you feel after certain interactions isn't imaginary. The overwhelm you experience in certain environments isn't weakness. The confusion and brain fog that descends when you ignore your intuitive pulls away from specific connections isn't coincidence. These are the alarms of your soul telling you, this energy is not compatible with your purpose. What if your need for distance isn't rejection but recalibration? What if your inability to engage as you once did isn't failure but faithfulness to your true design? The shift that changes everything is this: your boundaries aren't barriers to love, they're portals to purpose. By protecting your energy, you're not diminishing your capacity to serve, you're expanding it. By honoring your need for selective connection, you're not reducing your impact, you're refining it. If this speaks to that place in you that's been seeking permission to protect your energy without apology, comment "I receive it" in all caps. Your sensitivity is not a design flaw, it's divine design. This separation hurts, doesn't it? The distance from those familiar faces. The blank stares when you try to share what's awakening within you. The growing silence where conversation once flowed freely. The guilt that comes with choosing your truth over their comfort. Let me honor that pain while revealing its purpose. The painless path is the purposeless path. Every soul with significant impact has walked through significant isolation. Every vessel prepared for greater pouring has endured the fire of purification. Every life marked for divine purpose has experienced divine pruning. Look at the pattern throughout spiritual history: the desert before the promised land. The wilderness before the ministry. The cocoon before the flight. The death before the resurrection. Your pain isn't punishment, it's purification. Your isolation isn't abandonment, it's incubation. Your separation isn't rejection, it's realignment. What you're experiencing isn't the absence of divine favor, it's the evidence of it. The ancient spiritual truth is this: comfort and calling rarely coexist. Growth and familiarity seldom share the same space. Transformation and stasis cannot occupy the same vessel. The caterpillar must surrender everything it has known to become what it's destined to be. The seed must break open in the dark before it can reach toward the light. The refining fire doesn't destroy the gold, it reveals it by burning away everything that isn't gold. Your willingness to endure this painful separation marks you. It confirms that you value purpose over comfort, calling over convenience, truth over temporary harmony. Say this with me: my pain is not meaningless. My separation is not punishment. Every tear, every moment of loneliness, every pang of guilt is being woven into the tapestry of my purpose. If you're in this painful period of separation right now, comment "purposeful pain" below. Let me know you're out there. Because this crucible is crafting something in you that comfort never could. Here's a perspective that can transform your guilt into grace. Your walking away isn't just necessary for you, it's potentially catalytic for them. When you refuse to shrink back into old patterns for the comfort of familiar relationships, you create a tear in the fabric of collective conditioning. You introduce divine disruption. You become living proof that another way is possible. Your courage to change creates space for others to question. Your willingness to walk away despite the pressure to stay plants seeds of permission in the soil of their consciousness. Your commitment to your truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable, invites those around you into deeper authenticity. Moses leaving Egypt didn't just lead to his freedom, it led to the liberation of an entire people. Ruth leaving her homeland didn't just transform her destiny, it placed her in the lineage of world-changing kings and ultimately, a Messiah. Jesus leaving the carpenter's shop didn't just fulfill his purpose, it opened salvation to all of humanity. What if your separation isn't selfish but sacrificial? What if the temporary pain it causes creates the possibility of permanent awakening, both for you and for those you're leaving? The spiritual quantum mechanics are clear. Sometimes the most loving action is the action that appears least loving on the surface. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give another soul is the refusal to enable their sleep by compromising your awakening. By fully embodying your truth, you become a walking invitation to possibility. By honoring your calling despite the cost, you become a living permission slip for others to honor theirs. The shift that changes everything is this: your departure isn't the end of your influence, it's the beginning of your impact. Type 111 in the comments if this lit something in your soul, if you can feel the truth that your courage isn't just changing your life, it's creating ripples of possibility that extend far beyond what you can currently see. Here's the promise I need to speak over you: what feels like isolation is actually initiation into the most authentic connections of your life. The space created by walking away from connections that no longer align isn't emptiness, it's availability. It's not an ending, it's an invitation. It's the necessary clearing that precedes divine connection. Throughout spiritual traditions, we see this pattern: the leaving precedes the finding. The releasing precedes the receiving. The stepping away precedes the stepping into. Abraham left his father's house and found the land of promise. Ruth left her homeland and found Boaz. The disciples left their nets and found their calling. Over and over, we see the spiritual principle at work: sometimes you must walk away from the familiar to walk into the destined. Your true soul family. The connections that will nurture your growth rather than demand your stagnation, the relationships that will challenge your expansion rather than require your contraction, they're waiting on the other side of this courage. These aren't just nice words to ease your pain. This is spiritual law. Nature abhors a vacuum. Energy follows intention. Like attracts like. As you clarify who you truly are, as you commit to embodying your authentic frequency, as you honor the call to become rather than remain, you magnetize connections that resonate with that truth. The relationships waiting for you won't require the exhausting translation of yourself. They won't demand the diminishing of your light. They won't need you to be less so they can feel more. They'll speak your soul's language. They'll recognize your gifts without explanation. They'll honor your boundaries without resentment. They'll celebrate your growth because it inspires rather than threatens them. This isn't spiritual fantasy, it's energetic reality. The connections that align with your highest expression are already being woven into the fabric of your future. Your courage to walk away is the thread that pulls them closer. If you know deep in your spirit that authentic connection awaits beyond this season of separation, comment, "I'm ready," below. Because the waiting is nearly over. The finding follows the leaving. The reunion comes after the separation. Chosen one, I speak this activation over your life right now. You were not created for divided living. You were not designed for half-expression. You were not born to negotiate your divinity for the comfort of connections that cannot hold the vastness of who you're becoming. Every tear you've cried over relationships growing distant, every night you've lain awake questioning if you're making a terrible mistake, every moment of loneliness when the pull toward authenticity felt greater than the pull toward familiarity, none of it was wasted. All of it was working a weight of glory within you that far exceeds this temporary suffering. Your willingness to walk the narrow path marks you as one who values truth over temporary harmony, purpose over fleeting peace. Your courage to choose alignment over approval reveals the true nature of your soul, one who came here for transformation, not simply for belonging. The grief you feel isn't failure, it's evidence of your heart's capacity. The guilt that rises isn't divine correction, it's human conditioning being uprooted by divine direction. The fear that surfaces isn't spiritual warning, it's the resistance that always precedes rebirth. You're not waiting on God. God is waiting on you. Waiting for you to trust the divine current pulling you toward waters too deep for some to follow. Waiting for you to honor the sacred knowing within you above the familiar voices without. Waiting for you to choose purpose over guilt, calling over comfort, truth over temporary harmony. This is not the end. This is the threshold. This is where your half-hearted yes to old connections transforms into your wholehearted yes to divine direction. This is where your divided living gives way to integrated purpose. This is where your apologetic existence transforms into authorized power. The same courage that carried you away from what was familiar will carry you into what is destined. The same sensitivity that made old connections painful will make new connections profound. The same truth that caused separation will create unprecedented unity with souls traveling at your frequency. You were chosen not just to walk away, but to walk toward. Not just to leave, but to lead. Not just to break ties, but to build bridges, bridges to dimensions of connection you've only glimpsed but never fully experienced. If this stirred your soul, drop a water wave in the comments. That's how I know you're part of this rising wave, this movement of souls choosing authentic alignment over artificial harmony, divine direction over human expectation. Subscribe now if you know this is your season of courageous becoming. I speak blessings over everyone who presses that button, clarity for your separation, community for your journey, courage for your calling. You didn't walk away because you were cruel. You walked away because you were called. And that calling is about to lead you into connections more authentic, more supportive, and more aligned than any you've ever known. The leaving is not the end. It's just the beginning.